welcome to the very first Imagine What interview with a pro. Now, for this very special occasion, we are going to be speaking with one of my good friends, Madison Alford. She's a writer in the world of themed entertainment, so think theme parks, that type of world. Now, I've known her since she was an intern at Walt Disney Imagineering when we were both part of the story development team. This is a fantastic conversation. We really hope you enjoy it. In fact, it was only supposed to be about 10 minutes, but as you can see, it went a little bit longer. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer going into this episode. This was my first time recording, so my audio is a little bit off. I promise it'll be much better next month, and in the months, it will only get better and better. But the conversation we have with Madison is fantastic. We hope you enjoy the content. We hope you learn something about this world of writing for themed entertainment and creating worlds that people can step into and immerse themselves and hopefully get lost and enjoy. Now, without further ado, let me present to you my good friend, Madison. Hey, thank you for joining Imagine What, Madison. If you wouldn't mind, I know who you are, but lots of people out there might be meeting you for the first time. Could we get like a little bio who you are and where you're from and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Madison Alford, and I am currently an IP narrative manager at Falcon's Creative Group. So what that means is that I am taking any like IP narrative needs for whatever like projects come our way and making sure that they are in line narratively and through like that they are in line with the actual IP that the client has from our perspective. But I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, and then I grew up mostly in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I got my degree at Savannah College of Art and Design with a bachelor's in dramatic writing with a minor in themed entertainment design because when I was in high school, I went to New Fantasyland at Walt Disney World, and I was like, oh my God, these theme parks that I've been coming to like my entire life, people do this, and I kind of want to do that now. So I went to SCAD because I knew they had a themed entertainment program, and I started off in production design, and I was like, my skills don't really lie with doing like production design and mostly drawing and building things. But I realized that story was where my heart lied, and so I switched over to writing, which is where I really found my knack. And then when I graduated, I got an internship at Walt Disney Imagineering, which is where I met Kevin, and I was there for almost 3 years working on the Epcot transformation and Avengers Campus and a couple of other fun projects. And then I did freelance for 4 years, and now I'm at Falcons.
Fantastic. Hey, let's back up 1 second. So, like I said,
Yeah.
we have a lot of people like new to this world. Could you explain
Mhm.
what IP is?
Yes, it is intellectual property. So let's say for Disney, everything that they make is an intellectual property. So like Encanto or Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, that counts as IP. So being knowledgeable in the IP that you are working with is extremely helpful, especially when I was working on something like Avengers Campus, knowing a lot about the Marvel Cinematic Universe IP itself, whether it be like Spider-Man specifically for web slingers or just the entirety of the MCU, was extremely helpful for that project. And even with Epcot too, because we were introducing like a lot of Disney IP into Epcot through all of our experiences and having to work with that and knowing what we were doing and how those IPs would fit into.
So, what do you think it is that takes it like a great IP? Like, what makes you want to visit that type of world? So, go ahead and pick your favorite and describe like this. Let's dive into aspirational moments, right? That's something that you and
Mhm.
I both know. That is, what is that key moment from a movie or a book or a TV series that I want to personally experience? Now, what do you think makes a special one? What is an aspirational moment that you remember seeing on the big screen and finally being able to do it in a theme park?
Definitely for me, writing and also driving the Millennium Falcon in Smuggler's Run. When I did a play test for that, I got a little emotional because I got to sit in Han's seat, and I was like, this is so cool, and like you get to like punch it into hyperspace. Like it was just a magical moment for me to do that. And like honestly too, one of the moments that I hadn't even thought of before going on this attraction with Flight of Passage was riding a banshee, because I'm personally not the biggest fan of Avatar, but going on that attraction made me care about Avatar because of how beautiful it was and how like it was that like aspirational moment for a lot of people. And I feel like it really honed in on that. And it was just like, yeah, we with Avatar we got Pandora, we got the beautiful like locations. You get to ride a banshee, you get to feel it breathe. Like that is just such a like cornerstone attraction too, in my opinion.
And I think another reason that one translates so well is because of those environments
Mhm.
that the film team did, creating this amazing world of Pandora.
Agreed.
But also, there's a connection that I think a lot of us have to the banshees and just dragons, right?
Mhm.
From literature, from old fantasy films, and so we can all you kind of connect on that level of, yeah, that's a banshee, but I can also kind of recognize it as a dragon, and riding a
Yeah.
dragon, like riding Falkor in the Never-Ending Story. That
Mhm.
is a really cool aspirational moment for a kid. Riding on a giant flying dog, riding on anything.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, they had the studio tour, and one of the
Mhm.
little stops you can do was you can hop onto a giant bumblebee and pretend that you were in Honey I
Ooh.
Shrunk the Kids. And
Oh
so that
yeah.
was, one of the coolest moments in a film where, a kid gets to shrink down so small. You see
Mhm.
that kid in the movie flying on a bumblebee and then being able to select, do some movie magic of your own. I think that's another, good connection right there.
Mhm.
What are some of your favorite imagined worlds? Like, it doesn't have to be from a theme park space. It can be from books or TV or anywhere else. Like, what are some of your favorites? I think everybody has a fandom.
I am a Legend of Zelda girly through and through. So Hyrule is like my place I would love to go to. Uh, Listen, the fact that my face just like lit up and it's just like, I have been in love with the Legend of Zelda series since I was a kid and playing it on the Nintendo 64, playing Ocarina of Time for the first time, and then even just through like Breath of the Wild, being able to go into like those kinds of environments. Like I one day I hope to experience something like that in the real world. But even like in that same vein, like going to Super Nintendo World, kind of felt a little emotional for me because it was like Peach's Castle from Nintendo 64 Mario, and I was like, oh my god, like it's here. But that is definitely like one of Hyrule specifically is like a world that I love very much.
All right, so let's pretend that
Yeah.
the intellectual property is ownership is not a thing. Let's pretend
Mhm.
that hypothetically there's not a Zelda land in development, because I don't think anything has ever been announced for that. But we're
Mhm.
placing Madison in charge of creating this aspirational world of Hyrule for people to go visit. Now, what would you want to see in that type of
Mhm.
immersive environment?
Like, one, the castle is just such an iconic piece. Hey, sorry.
You're fine.
What?
You're fine.
Okay. The castle also going to the Great Deku Tree where Link starts his journey specifically in Ocarina of Time. The thing that's hard about Zelda too is that a lot of the locations, some of them are the same, but not all of the games go to the same locations.
Hmm.
So like the Great Deku Tree is in a couple of them, and so is the castle, but they change like aesthetically throughout a lot of the games, and some locations are in one game and then never seen again, like the Skyloft and Skyward Sword. But I would personally probably stick around like the Ocarina of Time area, since that is what most people associate with Legend of Zelda, or go more on the like Breath of the Wild spectrum too, because that's also just taken the entire Zelda fandom by storm, in complete honesty. But I would love to also see the Zora domain and like be like how when you go into certain areas and theme parks and they're like a lot cooler and you get a chance to like chill out, like that would be like really nice. And like Death Mountain where it's really hot but not actually really hot, because we don't want to kill people because it's too hot,
Yeah,
especially in Florida or California if it was going in either of those
we get plenty of
locations.
heat as is.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what about food? What kind of food would you want to eat in a Zelda world?
That's also so one of potions are a big thing in
Hmm.
Legend of Zelda. That would be my thing, is like being able to like carry like a bottle with a little potion in it. Lawn milk is also really big. I don't want it like the rice milk from the blue and green milk from Galaxy's Edge, but like definitely like some kind of milk that you can carry around. And the newer like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, you can make your own food, and that's like a huge thing. So like maybe a couple dishes from that would be super fun. You can go fishing. So lots of seafood I feel like would fit really well in that area.
All right. Well, naturally, the next question would be merchandise. Like, what is something you would want to
Um,
buy in a Zelda store? And what would the Zelda store be?
Thankfully with Legend of Zelda, it makes it really easy for you. There's already a Hyrule, like the like town specifically has a lot of shops already with a lot of merchandise that you can pick. So you can get like shields. You can also get like bombs if you were to put them. Don't actually put bombs in your park, obviously, but like maybe something like a chocolate bomb so that you could like get in a little bomb bag. Like boomerangs would be super fun. Just also getting like Link's outfit, because in Ocarina of Time you can get like the Zora version, which allows you to breathe underwater, and the Goron version. It's just they're blue and red. The Goron one lets you be able to survive in heat of the mountain. So I think you could totally play a lot with a lot of merchandise in there because it's just so fun.
So you thought about stuff like this before. Like this doesn't just
Oh yeah.
pop up. No, this has been in the back of your brain for years, right? So
Oh
how
yeah.
old?
I've been like, if Universal decides to call me, like if there's any like inklings of a Zelda like land, I want that to be me.
You can save them so many hours right now just by like,
Exactly.
listen, I got this laid out.
Got
So
it for you.
how old were you when you started like playing in this sandbox of wanting to create worlds or work on theme parks?
Creating worlds, as far as I can remember. Like I was writing like my own stories like in the elementary school like playground while all the other kids were out playing on the track or on the playground, and I had my little notebook and I was just like writing stories instead. I even at one point was like writing stories in middle school in like notebooks, and my friends wanted to read my stories, so I would like check them out to my friends. And I don't know why I never thought I was a writer. And I had been doing that when high school was really when I decided I wanted to create worlds for theme parks, because I had been going to Disney and Universal and like Busch Gardens and Dollywood when I was a kid. So like I had grown up in the world of theme parks, but I never
Yeah.
put like two and two together that I could create worlds for theme parks. And I don't know why it didn't dawn on me earlier when I went to New Fantasyland, that I was like, I knew who the Imagineers were. I just didn't like get the idea of like what it meant to be one. And so I was like, oh, duh, people have to, this is a job. This is like a thing people do. Like, this
Yeah,
is,
somebody has to do this.
someone has to do it. And why not? Why can't I do it? So that was really when I started like devoting all of my time to wanting to create worlds for theme parks. And even being in the dramatic writing program, they were like, listen, there's two tracks basically. There's a hidden third, which is plays, but mostly it's either you choose movies or TV. And then I went in and I was like, I want to do theme parks. And they were like, we don't teach that. And I was like, that's fine. Just give me what I need to learn how to craft and write stories through, if it's movies or TV, that's fine. I just want to figure out that I can hone in on that and I can take it from there. So usually all of my like personal time was writing my own like theme park treatments. So I wrote like an entire like BioShock theme park treatment with like multiple attractions and like figuring out how the land would work with interactivity, and like I wrote a roller coaster treatment. And even though I was still learning how to write for movies and TV, I really was like using my own time to do theme park related work. And I think that's really what like got me the internship at WDI, was
Mhm.
because I really honed in on my craft even while I was at college.
Nice. I have a question, and I'm so excited that I get to ask it because it's a question I've been
Yeah.
asked countless times,
hmm
and I have my own answer for it. But I want to know your answer for this. Why do you need a writer for theme parks? What does a writer,
Oh,
theme park writer, do?
I literally was just talking to my boyfriend about this over the weekend while we were on a cruise ship because it makes the entire design process so much easier to have a writer on. I was telling him about a project I was on where they had already like basically designed it and they brought us in like a year later and I was like, you guys could have saved yourselves so much time if you had just brought me in like forever ago. Like we could have like been developing the design and not having to go back on certain design choices because it didn't fit the story that we were creating. So, and it just makes the entire experience just so much more like robust. And even if the guest can't tell, like on a surface level, that a writer has been like throughout this entire process, like I
Mhm.
feel like subconsciously, at least in my opinion, that they can tell because it feels more like a realized experience and not just something like kind of like we're just gonna throw this thing together and call it a day. And there's not really a story. We're just gonna like throw a bunch of things and hope it sticks. Whereas like a writer really just brings it all together and makes sure that everything makes sense and make sure that the guests are even having like an experience that might not seem to them like they're like, oh yeah, like I like this, but it's like, oh, but everything from like the props, the interior
Mhm.
design, the media just all makes sense and like a pretty little package.
It starts clicking together because
Yeah,
that story is the trunk of the tree where all these other things can start branching off. It's in a
exactly.
way you're creating your own intellectual property. If you're starting from
hmm
scratch, then you're creating your own intellectual property, and then everybody knows. So anyone designing a street sign for that land can go back to
hmm
the story and figure out what it is they're doing. If I were
Yeah,
just to walk in and say, "Oh, I'm building a city full of animals," and that's not really a story, right? That's an environment. Those are some
right.
characters. But this is a story about predators versus prey, and now they live together in harmony. So we now have people who, or we now have animals that live together, and so they accommodate for big animals and small animals and medium-sized animals. Well, the graphic designer or any designer can look back at that and say, oh, well, I can't just build one size bench because we have big animals, medium animals, small animals. We now have to build three sizes of benches, or we need to have this type of animal on a street sign. So yeah, story is really the start of building any sort of imagined world. But the nice part about that is once you have that out, your artist can go in and start knocking things out of the park. So
Agreed.
if you weren't into the world of theme parks, I think I know the answer to this. If you weren't Madison, the theme park writer, where do you think your world building would have taken you?
Honestly, probably video games because I love video games so much. It's honestly my hobby because I love going to theme parks. That is like, but it is so hard to get my professional brain taken out when I'm going to a theme park. But when I'm playing a video game, it's just like out the window. Like I am just like I'm here for a good time. I don't
Yep.
care if it's in Fortnite, if there's like story through quests. Like I'm just here. Like I'm just here to experience it. But it's funny too. If I didn't get into SCAD, my backup plan was to become a paleontologist because I was just like, well, if I can't get into art school, might as well study dinosaurs and fossils.
If you can't build fake Jurassic Park, you can figure out real Jurassic Park.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
think
think
I
that's
see that
basically
connection.
probably what my brain did.
The cross wiring of your brain was like, well, it's a theme park in some sense.
Yeah.
So, if you have any advice you want to give, I mean, I'm a little older than you, so I consider you the next generation, and you're an amazing talent. You're going to go amazing places,
Thank
and
you.
I really see you as the next gen. But we're starting to get all these kids coming up, and that's the point of the box is to get the next generation of builders excited,
Yeah.
get them ready. Pass on that knowledge because you and I have the blessings of being able to talk to some amazing generational talent, people who worked like hand in hand with those who worked with Walt Disney. And so, what advice do you want to pass along to the next generation of somebody pursuing that dream of world building for theme parks?
I this is gonna sound so cheesy. It's probably
It's
not to
fine.
them, but it is to me because I have heard it so much. But it's so true, is be curious. Be curious about the world. Be curious about things you enjoy. Try to learn something new every day because honestly, curiosity, while the phrase is curiosity kills the cat, like it is so not true. Like if I was not curious about literally everything that I do, I would not be in the position that I am today because I try to like understand ride technologies. I try to understand just world cultures, like learn everything you can, especially for writing, because it helps you so much to be able to understand different perspectives, different attractions, and why they work, why they don't work. Like just being open and just taking in everything you can. Like when I was in college, and even when I started at WDI, like everyone was like, just be curious. That is like my one thing to tell you is be passionate, be curious. And I was like, I don't understand why everyone keeps saying be curious. And then as I have continued my professional career journey, I'm like, oh, I get it. I understand now why curiosity is so important, and it has helped me immensely because I understand so much more than I did when I started at WDI like 6 years ago. It's like, I want to go. I was like talking to my boyfriend and I was like, we need to go to other places besides Disney to open you up to, because he had only ever been to Disney
Hmm.
when we first started dating. And so we went to Universal. We've gone to Dollywood. Like, I'm like, okay, we need to go to Busch Gardens. We need to go to Legoland. We need to go to SeaWorld. We need to, when we go over to Europe at some point, we need to go to Efteling. We need to go to Europa Park because for at least my capacity, going to different theme parks is like trying to see how like they work and how they like present themselves to guests and what works and what doesn't work, and like seeing just how different the experiences are. And like that has been such an immense help, especially in my current job, because we're just like they'll like be like, oh, it's like this attraction, and I'm like, I know what that is. I've
Yep.
known about what this is for a while, and I'm glad I know what it is because no one has to explain it to me. So I feel like kind of like a tiny little expert.
Yeah, you can't be a great chef if you don't eat at one restaurant. You have to go out there, you have to
Exactly.
experience the world, experience what other people are doing. And
Yeah.
it really is an excellent thing that I think a lot of people kind of just get tunnel vision. They fall in love with a certain place, a certain theme park, and they kind of just stick to it because it's like a security blanket. But there are
Yeah.
some amazing theme parks being built out there all around the world. And because
Agreed.
we're in the age that we have now, we have access to YouTube where we have personalities traveling around the world experiencing these parks like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I could hop on and there's one guy on YouTube visiting all the state fairs across the United States, and that's something that I won't be able to do personally right now. But at least I can see all these different types of interpretations of the core
Exactly.
idea of a state fair. What does this mean to somebody up in Maine versus somebody in New Mexico versus somebody in Washington? So yeah, that is excellent advice. So I learned a lot. I've known you for years, and I'm still learning more and more
I
surprises.
know.
Thank you so much for being the very first guest for this.
Of
You're absolutely
course.
fantastic. Um,
Yeah. Just go out, have fun, be curious, be passionate. It's an exciting world out there, and like even when something like times seem dark, like it's so much fun working in this industry, knowing A, that it's not rocket science, and that like people are going to enjoy your experience that you create is just so cool. Like going to Avengers Campus and seeing people like take pictures of my signs, I'm like, that's so cool.
yeah, it's creating happiness. It's creating smiles and memories. That's what I love
Yeah, and
about it.
that's what like I feel like I got a little bit of that tunnel vision when working at WDI, and then I went to one of the like opening days of Galaxy's Edge, and like seeing everyone react to it like made me realize, oh, this is why I do it. Like
Hmm.
this is why the reaction that people were crying, cheering, like had their phones out, like, and I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
And I was like, this
It's
is
the
what I
it's the hard
love.
work paying off.
Yeah.
It's those hours of research. It's the hours of
Mhm.
throwing out ideas that don't work. Even though you're
Yep.
100% sure they're going to be amazing, they're going to work, they're going to be fabulous, and they don't work for one reason or another. But you go
Yeah.
back to the drawing board and usually you come up with something that's even better. But it's those memories where you're sitting outside, an attraction on opening day and you're seeing all the happy people come out. That's why
Mhm.
you do it. So,
Which,
hey, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I had another like pro tip. Go visit the
Oh, yeah,
parks if
please.
you're working for them. Like, especially with like Disney, like go to the parks, listen to guests. That is so helpful to like
Yep.
have an idea of the guest experience, especially with designing parks. Like, it's such a big help.
Yeah. Experience it and bring people who
Hmm.
have never been with you and get
Yes.
their
Oh
input.
my God, I
Or
love
if you don't
doing
have,
that.
if you're working there and you have the opportunity to take a little kid, if you have a niece, a
Hmm.
nephew, anybody, go with them because you'll start seeing things through their eyes.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think
Like,
one of the best exercises in that is at Magic Kingdom, where there's a little secret thing for only for short statured, people, kids, where you walk through the castle and you look at this a little statuette of Cinderella, and only from a certain angle do you see her wearing a crown. But it was designed from that perspective, so it's
yeah.
having those little moments. But for somebody who doesn't have kids or didn't go to the park with kids, that maybe that idea never would have popped up.
Hmm.
Um,
Totally.
so thank you for joining us again.
Thank
You're
you for having me.